Hi, this is Jonathan Tweet. I was the lead designer on 3rd edition. I've worked on a bunch of other games like Ars Magica and Everway and Over the Edge. And you are listening to Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
This week, Morrus and Jessica talk with Rob Heinsoo about 13th Age 2nd Edition. In the news, more previews of the Dungeons & Dragons 2024 Player's Handbook, PaizoCon Europe dates have been announced, a new Planar Map for the D&D cosmology is revealed, and more, this week on Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
The Grand Army of the Gondolarian Empire needs you. We are looking for fit, strong men and women to serve as frontline foot soldiers and cannon fodder. Be slaughtered for the glory of the Empire. While your sacrifice will never be acknowledged, you'll die horribly knowing that the idle whims of your illustrious masters have been served. Sign up before Friday for a 2% discount on your mandatory uniform.
All the tabletop role-playing news, we aim to amuse and we aim to enthuse. And Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
Hello, and welcome to Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Russ, aka Morrus, or Morrus, aka Russ. And this week, with me, is...
It's me, Jessica from D&amp Publishing. We are minus PJ Coffee, which sadly means I don't get my weekly hype.
No, it's sad.
But, you know, that is the way of things.
I could do it, but I just wouldn't do it justice.
You could try.
I could try, but I'm not gonna.
Okay, fair. All right, but joining us later, after we have talked about the news, we have a guest coming on this week to talk about 7th Age. 7th Age? 13th Age, 2nd 13th edition.
Age? I don't know which one 7th Age is.
I'm
that was
quite
ages
tired.
ago.
I'm quite tired. Sorry, it's showing now.
You called it 2nd Age earlier before we started recording.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, I'm quite tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. 13th Age, 2nd edition.
Yes.
We have Rob Heinsoo coming on to talk about the game and talk about different editions, because today we're going to be talking a lot. Obviously, we've got the D&D not new edition. Hashtag it's not new edition.
Lots of D&D news. Tons of D&D news.
So we're going to be talking about that. And so I just think it's interesting when we have different editions of games and the approaches designers take, and also why they decided to admit it's a different edition. So that was apparently quite a brave thing to do.
Well, we will find out soon enough.
We'll find out. Should we talk about the news first, though?
Yeah, let's do this news. Should we start with D&D or finish with D&D?
Let's...
It's mainly D&D, to be fair, so when I say start with or finish, shall we...
Which one do you want?
Do a little bit of non-D&D, or do the D&D, then a little bit... Oh, I know what I mean.
A little bit of not D&D. Let's do a little bit of not D&D news to start with.
All right, let's do a little bit of not D&D news. Okay,
There's some Pathfinder news.
We've got the PaizoCon stuff, haven't we?
Yes. Tell me, let's discuss that.
All right. PaizoCon Europe.
Yes.
2024 is going to be in Geneva, in Switzerland, in August. Mm-hmm. And this is Paizo's main sort of European Pathfinder event. There's two separate events. There's one for in-person ones, and one for online events.
Oh, nice. So it doesn't actually matter where you are in the world. You could easily attend online then.
Yeah. So this is organised by the European Organised Play Volunteers.
Oh, okay.
So I guess it's sponsored by Paizo, but basically it's all about Pathfinder 2nd edition, 1st edition, Starfinder 1st edition, and a playtest adventure for Starfinder 2nd edition.
So is it just people running loads of Pathfinder games and playing them?
I think it's of course in Geneva, which means it's near CERN, and we know someone from CERN.
We do.
We operate in higher circles like that.
Yeah, well, yes, obviously. Yeah.
We know rocket scientists.
Indeed. Oh, actually, the game's going to be offered in different languages as well. I guess because it's in Europe, that makes sense, because...
Yeah.
Many languages in that continent. Oh, cool.
Yeah. I've never been to Switzerland.
I don't know how to
You don't know what to say to that?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, well...
Oh, okay then. Thanks for letting me know.
You could... It's an achievable dream if you want to.
I could go to Switzerland, yeah.
Yes. But anyway, sign-ups. You can sign up now, I think.
Via Warhorn.
Yes, on July 15th it said that you could sign up. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and then so you've got until August 12th to sign up, because Warhorn will close then. I think that's because in person they have to organise tables and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can sign up online if you want to play some Pathfinder games online. It might be, if you're looking to get into Pathfinder, it might be quite a friendly place to learn a bit, like if you're new to it and just and figuring it out. Because what I know of the Pathfinder community is they're very welcoming and they're really keen for new people to come and try out the system. So it may be a good place for that.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've not gone myself, so I can't say whether or not. But I feel like...
I have no reason to believe it isn't, put it that way.
Yeah. I always feel like community events like this are always a really nice place to try new systems because everyone there's like really passionate about the game and they want to share it with you, so you don't get that, so when you sit at the table, people are more than happy to explain to you what's going on. So that could be a fun one if you're looking to get into Pathfinder.
Well, what else we got that's not D&D?
I have other event news. This one isn't as fun, but it is a thing that happened. So there is an award. So there's loads of different tabletop RPG awards. So there is the Crit Awards. I think it's been running for a couple of years now. And the Crit Awards are, they kind of for creative people in tabletop RPG space. So as well as doing games, they do things like actual play. People, like, they have the best GM and the best player. And they also do it for like artists in the space and podcasts. We're not nominated, but what can we do? But anyway, So the Crit Awards are that, and they're gonna have a ceremony at Gen Con to announce the awards. Cool. Unfortunately, well, what's happening now? The Crit Awards are pulling the ceremony from Gen Con because they've cited safety concerns. So I don't have a lot of information about what those safety concerns are, but the Crit Awards have put out a statement saying, "Thank you to the community for that outpouring of support. We will never be able to fully articulate or express what is meant to us in the midst of a very difficult situation. We implore everyone to not attack each other for the hard decisions that many have been considering and making, as we do not condone violence or harassment. Once again, we want to thank everybody who has shown kindness and support both privately and publicly."
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation about whether this was Gen Con's decision or theirs.
Yes.
It's not clear.
And I don't have that information.
I don't know either. I mean, there's a lot of people assuming one way or the other, but I literally do not know whether it's Gen Con or their decision.
Yeah, Rascal News has also covered this story, and they do not have clear information about that.
Gen Con's not saying anything.
Yeah. So
Gen Con's keeping quiet.
The reason this happened, sensitive subject, so just to let people know. So pretty much the reason why is that... sorry, I'm just going to take a second to phrase this properly so that...
Well, there was a new clause that appeared in their eligibility requirements, is basically what happened.
Right, yes.
I haven't got the exact wording in front of me, but should we call it up to make sure we're reading it exactly?
But pretty much they had a stance about being anti-Zionist.
Here we go. Let me call up the exact term.
So the Crit Awards said this.
So this is their eligibility awards criteria. Amongst, it's got no racism, no homophobia, no ableism, no sexism first. But then it's got individuals who identify as Zionists, promote Zionist material, or engage in activities that without a doubt support Zionism are not eligible for nomination. That's the clause that was added.
So when that statement went out, obviously there was a lot of talk online about it, because with this subject, there's a lot of talk online, and I think that is the reason why the safety concerns have come along from either the Crit Awards or Gen Con, because of all the online discussions that are going for. Yeah. And I haven't seen the exact information, so I don't know if that means that there were threats sent against them or what that means.
I have no idea.
But this is what has happened. So... But the Crit Awards, I believe, are still going ahead. They will still be giving awards, but it just won't be in person at Gen Con.
Okay. But the Ennies are still there.
The Ennies are still taking place at Gen Con, as far as I'm aware. Yes, as far as I'm aware. So that was my less Peruvian news, but it's nevertheless a thing that has happened. Yeah,
that thing has happened, and it has been duly reported. So, I guess we're on to the D&D news really now, aren't we?
Well, I have one... Well, kind of D&D news, but also not, is the Void Runners Codex, because it is compatible with 5e, so you can use a core, 5e rules. So the Void Runners Codex is ending next week on Thursday. So when you're listening to this, next Thursday, the Kickstarter will close. So I just wanted to put that in, because it's exciting times. 4th of July. As the Americans
voting day
say.
For us and Independence Day for the Americans.
Yeah, so a lot of people might be busy on that day because they're either doing independent things or doing votey things. So,
We're not going to be voting all day.
It takes all day.
Does it take all day to vote?
It does to me. I'm going to stand in that booth and stare at my options and just hold my head in my hands and be like,
Consider it. Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway.
It's going to take me approximately 0.1 seconds.
I was going to make a political joke, but I won't. I will refrain. I was like, obviously you're going to vote for these people.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure it would have been an amazing joke.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Great.
We'll allow the viewers to just fill in the blank.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we got more news about, those videos that we talked about last week.
And we predicted there would be more.
2024 Players Handbook videos. We predicted there would be more, and we were correct. There are more. More. So we've got one about the barbarian, we've got one about the druid, and one about the warlock, one about the rogue, druid, warlock, rogue, and barbarian. Yes, there's 4 more. And wizard.
Wizard, druid, warlock, rogue.
So 5 more.
Was the barbarian last week?
Was the barbarian last week?
The barbarian was last week.
Was it last week?
It was last week. Yes.
Oh.
Because the article was up on the 21st of June, which was last week.
Okay. I'm sure we didn't talk about it last week. I don't remember talking about it.
Was it not released at the time?
I think it went up after we finished recording. I think that's what it was.
Oh, okay. So the barbarian was posted last week, but it wasn't at the time of recording, so we'll discuss it. So we have 5 classes to talk about.
Plus we have a map of the D&D Planar cosmology.
Oh yeah, the map.
Which is quite exciting. We've got a DM screen appearing. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff, D&D stuff. So what order should we do this in?
Well, I'm keen to talk about the classes. Should we go through them in order that they were released?
So Barbarian first, then.
So we'll do Barbarian first. So 21st of June.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't played a lot of Barbarian classes in D&D 5e, but I have played it a lot in Baldur's Gate, and I know it's different. I know it is different, but it is very fun just coming and hitting things sometimes. So I was interested in taking a look at it. Rage is still important, as I can see.
Yeah, we've got the 4 subclasses: World Tree Berserker, Wild Heart, which used to be called Totem Warrior, and Zealot. The 4 subclasses.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, this again is very similar to the playtest with a few changes.
Mm-hmm.
So you get weapon mastery at first level. Rage is a bit easier to maintain than it used to be. You get danger sense at 2nd level. Line of sight is no longer needed, and it only ends if you are incapacitated.
Mm-hmm. Well, the bit I'm interested in is everyone knows when you're doing a, barbarian berserker, rage, you just want to go into a rage all the time because thematically fun, but also mechanically fun. So I know that they've tried to make it easier to maintain rage, so you can do a force save or you can use a bonus action to keep it going. But one thing they had was the last playtest, which I assume it's still there, is the short rest recharge for the rage. Because I think that would make it much more cool. Because it was long rest previously, wasn't it? And
yeah.
I like a short rest for recharges and things. Because I'm playing with a fighter. I like that you get your superiority dice back on a short rest. It means you can.
So basically, they want the barbarians to be angry all the time.
Yeah,
like
that's
that's
their secret. You see,
that's their secret.
They're always angry.
Yeah. So what's new there? We've got brutal strike. You get extra damage with the effects, and that damage increases at level 13. What else is new? The Berserker subclass gets Frenzy at level 3, which builds on Reckless Attack. It's more damage. And no exhaustion. What else is new? I mean, there's a lot of things that are just like minor changes. They're not massive differences. Like the Zealot, its Fanatical Focus at level 6 now comes with the bonus to the reroll. And things like that. So there's a lot of little things sprinkled around. There's no big new rules.
That's a lot of the classes, in fairness, have little tweaks and things, which I think makes sense, seeing as it's not a new edition, don't you know, Russ?
And also because, this is since the playtest, and if the playtest involved massive rewriting...
Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of playtesting? What's the point of asking everyone's opinion? Be like, yeah, that's great, guys, but we're just going to go and do this instead.
An entirely different class,
But as we discussed last week, that's a thing that some tabletop RPG publishers do anyway.
And the Wild Heart, which was the Totem Warrior, is now sort of more useful. There's a salmon for a swim speed, panther for a climb speed, and an owl for dark vision, which is kind of different to what was in the playtest packet, which is where you got expertise and a skill. In this case, you got actual abilities, you got speeds and dark vision and stuff.
That does sound more thematically fun.
Yeah. I prefer. Yeah, I always prefer new abilities to numerical bonuses, just because numerical bonuses aren't like thematically
Exciting.
interesting.
You
Yeah,
don't feel like you've got something.
Yeah.
You're not oh, look at my character, I got this cool new thing. Like, now I finally get my...
It's not a new toy, is it?
Yes, exactly. That's a really good description, yeah.
It's just a slight improvement on an old toy.
Yeah, I upgraded my operating system.
Mm.
It's not as exciting as getting a new game.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
that's the Barbarian.
Barbarian, Berserker,
yeah.
whatever it's called. It
is called the Barbarian.
That angry folk.
Yeah.
There's
Barbarian
also
/ Hulk.
There's also the Rouge. Which of all the classes is the one I'm most interested in.
That's your favourite class.
That is my go-to class. And what that says about me, we can leave to the armchair psychologists.
Okay.
But yeah, one thing that's interesting, what was I looking at in this? So again, this has been like tweaked. There's nothing so majorly new in this that I was like, wow, this is going to change everything.
People were generally quite happy with the Rogue. So, I mean, they said that our main job here was to not mess it up because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, sort of thing.
Yes. So there was
it didn't need much.
There was nothing too different, really. What was one thing I was looking at? It was something to do with the fast hands feat, because I like that feat, because I use that. Oh, it can activate magic items as a bonus action now.
Right.
Which I was quite like as a thief. Because when I take the thief, I do like the fast hands and cunning, cunning action combo, so you can get to do loads of stuff. Because I like having a very versatile rogue that has loads of reactions and bonuses and stuff they can do on their turns. Yeah. So that seemed like another thing just to give you more versatility of getting to do loads of stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, again, lots of little tweaks, nothing major. A lot of them are in the subclasses. We've got the Assassin, Arcane Trickster, Soul Knife and Thief. Mm-hmm. So with the Assassin, you now get Disguise and Poisonous Kit with proficiency. Mm-hmm. And you get something called Roving Aim at 9. Your speed is not reduced to 0 if you use Steady Aim.
Oh, that's quite cool. So you can move a little bit.
I'm trying to think, have I actually played a 5e Rogue?
It's fun.
I don't think I have. I'm not as intimately familiar with the Rogue as I am like with the Wizard and stuff, so yeah.
Well, that's good, because I don't know that much about the Wizard, so between the two of us we can have opinions.
Fair enough,
but yeah.
fair enough.
No, I quite like the code. Like you said, there isn't a huge amount of changes, there's some tweaks. The only thing that is taken out is disarm. When you do your Cunning Strike, disarm isn't an option anymore.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know. What do you think? Does this make you more into wanting to play a rogue or less, or still the same?
I think the same, to be honest. There's nothing here that's like, ooh, this is gonna change the game up for me. I mean, it's more of what you want, really. Yeah,
it is tweaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like finding weird builds with rogues, or like multi-classing a rogue level in to be able to do weird stuff with characters, and it looks like I can still do those things. Activating a magic item as a bonus action is nice as a thing for fast hands, because again, I like that feat.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I don't have a lot more to say, but looks good. Love a rogue. Yep. We'll continue to love a rogue.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing was about you can use Psychic Blades as an opportunity attack.
Oh, the Soul Knife?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So you didn't used to be able to do that, but you can now, which is nice.
Okay, very cool. Very cool.
So we like to start things.
Right, which one should we do next?
Rouge. The next will be the Warlock, and I've not played a Warlock before. So
yes, they described this as the character builder's paradise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, let's have a look, shall we? So we last saw it in Playtest 7. Just glancing through this, there's going to be more Eldritch Invocations. You're making big choices with the Pact Boons, and it's a big deal. They call it a juicy choice, and you can get them all over time.
Also, all Pact Boons start at level 1, whereas I think before it came in, was it level 3?
The subclass wasn't it? Or was it the Pact Boons?
Pact Boons.
I can't remember.
Now
was it? Yeah,
1.
okay.
I think it was... Again, I've not played a Warlock a lot, so...
Yeah. There's more spooky critter options for Pact of the Chain.
Love that.
The Slard Tadpole, the Skeleton, Imp, Pseudo-Dragon, Quasit, Sprite, Sphinx of Wonder, Venomous Snake, and they're all going to be in the PHP.
Okay, cool.
Spellcasting's been enhanced. More of the invocations work with Warlock spells, rather than just working with Eldritch Blast. So you could have like Ray of Frost with Repelling Blast. You can contract a patron at 9. Mystic Arcanum at 11. It's got an expanded spell list. But yeah, and the subclasses are Archfey, a Teleportation Fantasia. Interesting. Okay. That could be interesting. Okay. Celestial, Fiend, and Great Old One.
Celestial looks interesting because now they have Guiding Bolt and Cure Wounds and Aid as subclass list options on there. So it's like, ooh, could you have like a Warlock healer build? It looks like you can have... I wonder if you could make that more of a thing.
Possibly. I think the problem with these is they're quite long videos and you kind of have to sit and watch the videos to get the full context. Yeah, I sometimes wish like companies put out more information in text format than video format. Because that happens a lot these days. But,
it's shocking that someone as a written news site would feel that way.
Well, yeah, there is that. It's just that I personally find it easier to digest stuff in writing than spend sort of like half an hour watching a video.
I find that as well. Because then also, if it's written, you can skip to the bit that you're interested in. So... Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, technically you can do that in a video as well, I suppose. I mean, it's hard. It's just going to be harder.
It's hard to know. But anyway.
Yeah.
Who has the time?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think this looks interesting. I'm intrigued by the idea, could you make like a healing sort of warlock? I'm interested by the roleplay aspect you could have for that with like a celestial pact and you're using power from that to do, you know, good work.
Yeah.
I like that, because I think people always think of warlocks and they think of it being like edgy, you've made a pact with an awful demon and then you have all these ghouls, which you can absolutely do and that's very fun. But I like the idea of the celestial one. I haven't seen a lot of people do that sort of approach with a warlock myself. Maybe I'm not playing in very diverse circles, maybe everyone's like, oh, it's a very common thing to do, Jess, you should know. But I don't know, that interests me. So to go back to your question you asked me about the rogue, would this playtest make me more or less likely to want to play a warlord? A warlock, I would say more.
Okay.
Because that intrigues me. What about you?
About the same. I mean, the warlock has never, been my top tier classes.
What
is I'm just a bit old fashioned, but mine do tend to be the sort of core four: fighter, wizard, rogue, cleric, and then they're all fine, they're all good. But I think I like a wizard. I do like a wizard.
Well, if you like a wizard, good news for you. We're going to talk about one in a bit.
The wizard.
But first, we must druid.
I've never played a druid.
I have once. I did play a very, not an optimal at all druid, because I only picked druid for the vibes because I was playing like a plant person, and it made sense, but the way I played it was not in any way optimal. So I don't feel like I'm someone
but that's just you generally, isn't it? You never optimise characters, so...
Hey, my fighter is actually very good at what she does, which is fighting. that I'm playing right now, so that is pretty optimised. So, first of all, how dare you? But second of all, so what I'm saying is I'm not the authority on druids. I'm not a person to talk about druids a lot. And I know a lot of people online were talking about the druid class because a lot of people that play druids a lot absolutely love them. I think they are one of the most versatile classes to play based on 5e because you can do so much with them, but different combinations and stuff you can do. You can have so many different build specs. So I know that people that like the druid love the druid. But yeah, let's discuss.
Looking at this, there's not a lot here that wasn't in the playtest materials.
Okay, it looks the same.
I don't think it's had a massive change since the final playtest. They don't mention anything about the beast forms in the player's handbook.
Okay, that's like a big...
At least not in the video, but doesn't mean they're not in there. They just haven't mentioned them. I assume they are in the there'll be an appendix or something of beast forms in the player's handbook. I guess. But yeah, like it is pretty similar to what was in the playtests.
Oh, okay. So kind of what we talked about
Not
before.
a lot of more information in this video. It's kind of a bit of a summary of what we already knew. I know what this means. The sea druid. So the subclass is the land, sea, moon and stars druids. For the sea druid, they said they wanted to make sure we don't have the Aquaman problem.
What is the Aquaman problem?
I don't know what...
Because as soon as I Google it, it says they have to deal with the fallout from Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's dueling lawsuit. And I don't know if that's an issue in 5e.
I don't think that's probably it, yeah. I mean, Aquaman's problem historically is that generally his superpower is that he talks to fish, which, on the face of it, isn't possibly the most glamorous of superpowers.
I mean...
But it can come in useful.
I was trying to look up the Aquaman problem. All I've got is, like, celebrity gossip as a result.
Yeah. I don't
Which
know.
I don't think is the issue for Druid and 5e.
I really don't think that's what they're talking about. No,
I don't think they're talking about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
No.
Unless,
it doesn't seem likely.
Unless they are, and they're like, look, we really didn't want them to taint this. Which is fair enough. Cool, all right.
It seems unlikely, yeah.
So, look at Playtest Day, and you're going to see basically what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this. As I say, I'm not super knowledgeable at the Druid, but I guess if we look at Playtest 8, that'll see everything. I'm surprised they didn't mention beast forms in the player's handbook, because I think that's such an iconic Druid thing, and why a lot of people are drawn to it, because they're like, yeah, I want to turn into a giant owl bear or something, which I know you technically can't in the rules, but they did in the movie.
Or a squid or something, yes.
Yes, or a squid.
Should you wish to be a squid.
Yeah, sometimes
Who
I do.
doesn't want to be a squid?
Yeah. I don't know if life would be more or less stressful.
Squids are very clever, apparently.
Yeah, I know, and maybe that would stress me out.
And that was the Druid.
Anyway, cool. Should we talk about the wizard then? Because you like a wizard.
I like
the
a wizard.
artwork for the wizard's cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. The arguments raging around the artwork in this edition.
There's
online.
I haven't seen them. I've avoided them.
They're intense and it's
What's the summary?
Oh, do you really want to know?
Mm-hmm. I've not engaged with it or seen it because I'm.
Well, you know what the summary is going to be. It's too diverse. It's too cutesy.
Wait.
It's basically
a
what it's going to be.
fantasy game with different fantasy heritages is too diverse.
Question. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going near that. I think it looks fine.
This is a stupid thing.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's a tabletop RPG game. You can make your character whatever you want them to be. Like, literally. And if you just want that to be a human white person, you can do that. No one's stopping you if that's what you want to play. Yeah. And other people can play different things, and it's fine.
The big argument was centered around the image of the orcs.
The orcs.
I think that all week has been kind of raging
on
Twitter. And okay, so basically there's an art piece illustrating orcs in the player's handbook, and they're kind of themed. People are saying Mexican. It's kind of, I would say, more cowboy, but yeah, it's just like people are objecting to the way the orcs are being portrayed in the book. I mean, orcs are now a player species, whereas they weren't before. So obviously, have you seen the piece of art in question?
I'm looking it up now. Yeah, it's got a very Western vibe. Like, there's someone on a horse in the background.
Yeah.
And they are, like, in a cowboy setting in the background.
I think people are also objecting that they're kind of portrayed as kind of engaged in non-combat activities. And I think this is a theme throughout the player's handbook. A lot of the art, or I think nearly all of it, there's very little of it that is combat activities. It's people living normal lives. Like the dwarves are like smithing, and the orcs are there sort of travelling across plains and things. I think some people are saying that I don't know. I don't try to summarise what people are saying, but I don't necessarily understand it. It's, I don't know. It looks. I think it looks fine. I think it looks great, but.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people just living their lives, but in the orc picture I'm looking at, which is the one I assume everyone is unhappy with, there is someone standing in the middle with like a giant axe and things. So clearly they're a fighter, but they're just travelling somewhere. Because even if you're a warrior, like look at Lord of the Rings, that they're all there's competent fighters in the Fellowship, but for part of it, you have to walk to where the fight is,
There is an awful lot of walking in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
it's gotta be said.
It's a big.
They walk up some hills, and then they walk down some hills, and then they walk up some more hills, and then walk down some more hills, and then after that, you know what they do? They walk up another hill.
Get on an eagle.
And walk down another. There's a lot of walking in.
Then they walked along where they're like, "Should we just get a flight home?" Because that was a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it turned out the eagles could turn up there after all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so the wizard, anyway.
But anyway, getting back to the wizard, I think that's a weird take, but...
Yeah.
Because it's a fantasy make-believe game, you can make your character whatever you want them to be. If you want your orc to be a bloodless
Do you know
fighter,
what I think it is? I think it's because who people feel the game is being marketed towards. And this, right, pretty much defines what representation is about, right? So if people are now coming around, like white people are now coming around saying, we're not represented, that's bad, then okay, you've just repeated what everyone's been saying. Now you get it. I don't know. It's like,
yeah, but I don't mind when it happens to other people. It's when it happens to me that it upsets me.
Yeah. I think it is kind of who the game's being marketed, and not just in terms of representation, in terms of like ethnicity and stuff, but also age and things like that. But D&D has always been a game that I started playing D&D when I was like 11.
Yeah,
and a lot of the people I know started playing D&D when they were about that age.
Yeah, my nephew's about that age and is getting into role-playing games now. It's always
been the case, and it's still the case. Why do people think it wouldn't be?
I think it's a hobby that's for a range of ages, because I started playing when I was in my early 20s, and as a result, I have friends now. Like, I have some friends in their early 20s, which I no longer am, and then I've got friends in their 50s and 60s. And even though without the hobby...
friends in your 50s, that's so old.
I know, imagine being that age.
It's terrible. Imagine being in your 50s.
There's but normally, we're all in completely different life stages, and a lot of us have different life things. Like, some people are parents, some people are carers, some people, but just because of the hobby, we're all kind of connected and friends because we like this thing. And so, I don't know, I think games representing that lots of different types of people play games is not a bad thing. But I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, well,
but I think we're pretty preaching to the choir, because I think most people that listen to this are very much on the page of, that's fine, it doesn't affect me.
I can't really speak to what other people think and feel anyway, so, it's... But yeah. Anyway, the wizard, they describe this as the paramount collector of spells.
Ooh.
And many of the new spells in the Player's Handbook are for the wizard.
Mm-hmm.
The subclasses are the Abjurer, the Diviner, the Evoker, and the Illusionist. The 4 subclasses there. Mm-hmm. Each one focusing on a different school of magic. I assume from that, in later books, we're going to get all of the other schools of magic brought about with subclasses, I assume. Just looking at them, like the Abjurer is obviously your protection wizard. They got Arcane Ward at level 3, resistance, immunity applied before the Arcane Ward. At level 6, they get Projected Ward. So your friend's resistance is applied before the ward for them. And then at level 10 you get Spellbreaker, which basically means counterspell and dispel magic. They're both prepared, and you can dispel magic as a bonus action.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Diviner, level 10, you get Third Eye. As it's a bonus action to activate, you get 120-foot dark vision, see invisibility. I mean, it says here no mention of greater comprehension, but this is a video of people talking about it. It's not like they've listed every single feature of the class. Just because they haven't mentioned something doesn't mean it's there.
Arcane Recovery isn't mentioned there, but I'm sure that's still a thing.
Doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
It's just that didn't come up in conversation.
Okay, cool.
Evoker, all about bringing the boom.
That sounds
I think everyone
fun.
knows what an evoker is and what that's going to be like. And then we got the illusionist. So they kind of felt like that subclass needed a bit more oomph. So they've got improved illusions at level 3, and they got phantasmal creatures, which is kind of cool. So that summon beast and summon face spells are always prepared, which is kind of cool. And the illusory version can be cast without expending a spell slot, but it will have half the hit points.
There you go. Yeah. The thing about illusions with wizards, I haven't played wizards, so I'm not. But I find, from an outside perspective looking in, a lot of the illusion spells, mechanically by themselves, don't feel like they're really powerful. But if you put it in a roleplay sense, and if you have a good table that's role-playing the situation,
them in a context,
it works really well. Like, I had this one really friend of mine did this. Like, they're in a dungeon, there was a big chasm and a bridge going across, and they looked across and there was this army of goblins on the other side that was too high level for them. And the wizard put behind the goblins on the other side of the thing, it was like, maybe it was Dissonant Whispers or something like that, freaked them all out, and all the goblins ran away from it and then ran into the chasm because they were terrified because it went so well. So that was very effective for the situation. Yeah. But I think, so I don't know if, when they say the subclass needed more, is it that there are issues?
It's hard to balance this stuff when you're doing it across the 3 pillars of play, though.
Yeah.
Because it's easy if you're just easy is a strong word, but it's, if you're just balancing it for combat utility, that's different to if you're balancing that against social abilities and exploration abilities.
Yeah.
So, and depending on what you look for in a game, 2 people can look at the same class, and one can think it's woefully underpowered, and unbalanced. Another can think it's really powerful and useful.
Yeah.
Depending on their style of play, the type of game they play, the type of game their DM tends to run, So it is hard to balance this stuff. I mean, what we did it with Level Up is we decided that there were these 3 pillars, and we decided to balance each pillar individually.
Yeah.
With each class having
a bit to do in
features for each. Yeah. And that was that's the approach we took. So we said, right, instead of like it all being a big mush of stuff, each class has 3 pillars. I mean, it's not defined like that. As from a design point of view, you can sort of see that it has, but it's all kind of blended together.
Oh, yeah. It's not separate, yeah.
And then each of those pillars is the bit that's supposed to balance against the same pillars in other classes.
I wonder if a lot of these tweaks did that as well.
Yeah, maybe. Hard to tell.
Because there are some really fun spells for wizards that I don't often see get used because they're not like...
Yeah.
Because they're some of them are so situational.
You can be doing different stuff every session.
Yeah.
With different spells. That's what I like about wizards. You got out of all the classes, I guess they're the ones with potential for the most variety.
Interesting. That's why it stresses me out though, because I feel like I have to do loads of homework, and if I don't know all the spells,
you only have to know your spells, not all the spells.
But I need to pick which spells I'm taking, so I do need to know the spells to know what to choose.
Yeah, true.
And when you get to higher levels, you have like a Rolodex.
Some of them just look cool and you go, oh, I love that. I don't think you have to like read every single one and think that careful. I certainly don't.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. But yeah, the idea of playing Wizard stresses me because I think that there are so many options, and that's what a lot of the other people like, because there are so many options, there's so much that you can do. I almost get analysis paralysis with, one, choosing what to do, and also I'd worry that on my turn I wouldn't be a good player because I'd be one of those players that'd be like, and I'd be like, not have a clear idea what to do. Like with other classes I play, I have a rough idea of what I'm going to do. Obviously you react to the world because things can happen, but generally I don't spend a really long time deciding what I'm doing on my turn. I kind of know what I'm doing and I can...
Well, when you're a fighter, your choices are more limited, I suppose. So.
Not with all the superiority dice I have. Very tactical. I've got many. I took loads of feats and bonuses, so I had extra slots, and I've got loads of different ones. So actually, I think you'll find.
Well, fair enough.
How dare you?
All right. Okay. Well, that's the classes.
All right. So, what did you think about the wizard then? Does this make you more, less, or the same to want to play
the same. I mean,
no major changes.
Yeah, it hasn't. I think the subclasses don't excite me.
Okay.
And for me, wizard subclasses, I would rather they move away from the schools of magic and just go into sort of thematic subclasses, like a war mage or
a fire mage
or whatever and stuff like that. And that's my preference when it comes to.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would have homebrewed that, so they do that, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we did in Level Up. We went in that direction, rather. So, I don't know, yeah. I mean, Abjura, Diviner, Evoker, Illusion is fine. None of them excite me, but that's just because that's not my preference when it comes to...
Fair enough. I would
the thematic nature of subclasses.
For me, I also say the same. I have the same issues. But the issue with why I don't want to play a wizard isn't actually a fault of the wizard. I think it's just not for me. Because all the things you like about the wizard are things that I don't like about it. So it's one of those things to bear in mind. If you're designing a game, you're not going to please all the people. And it's not because your thing isn't good. It's just because people like different things.
That is why there's 12 different classes.
Yeah. And I will play 2 or 3 of them. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, right, so that's the classes.
Alright.
We did also get some news about a DM screen.
Doesn't sound like a lot of news.
It's not a massive amount of news, but there's a New Zealand retailer has a new DM screen up for pre-order.
Ooh.
Which we haven't seen
Are they meant
before.
to put this out this early? Or was that
I don't know.
They put it up and...
I couldn't tell you. All I know is it's there.
Okay.
So the new 4-panel DM screen, basically a revised interior... based on the new 2024 rules and also like lots of feedback from players over the years on the old screen. Yeah, I mean, you know what a DM screen is. We don't know the exact contents of it. We can only see the outside of it, not the inside, which has a big dragon on the outside.
Cool. The artwork looks nice as well. It looks quite epic and fun.
Yeah,
I'm sure the tables are pretty
good. It's a panoramic scheme by Joy Ang, and it depicts every core class as well on there as well.
That makes
sense. There's a dragon in the centre, and they've got the classes on either side.
And they're all centred around the D20 dice that the dragons are staring at with glee.
Oh, so he is. I didn't even spot that. Oh, yeah, he's staring. Well, there's 3 dragons there.
Yeah.
And they're all staring at this D20 dice.
They are.
Yeah. And it's rolled a 20. Lucky them.
Lucky them. But yeah,
Lucky
no,
them.
I do
They've
like
got a
a
critical.
GM screen. Since I started running, I do just like the little references in a more mechanically crunchy game, like that I use the level up one every time I run, just for things like, just for information about the regions and just for what are the effects at certain levels of fatigue or strife again, so I don't have to look it up. It's just useful just having it there. It's like, what would level 2 be? Oh, it's this, just to remind myself. Yeah. And also the conditions list.
I'm of 2 minds about GM screens. I find them useful, but I also feel that subconsciously they put up a barrier between me and the players, which I don't like. And I don't know if that's just in my head and that's just me.
Well, I tend to stand up when I'm running games anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm so short. If I put up the GM screen,
You
generally
can't see
I can't see
over the GM
over it. It's like generally, especially if I have a map out. If I sat down,
you could sit on a booster cushion, perhaps.
Yeah, I can't bring them with these conventions. Like, I'm already carrying enough stuff. But no, genuinely, if I sat at a table and the GM screen's up, I can't see the map in front of me. Anyway, that's all the news I have for this week. I think we're going to get more.
Oh, we got a quick look at the new map of D&D's planes.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Cosmology map, which was quite interesting. It was quite a stylistically distinct map. It's like a 3D kind of blocky image of the Great Wheel of D&D's planes, with the Sigil in the middle and the Outlands, and then all the different planes sort of ranged around. Yeah. And it's just like this kind of 3D
donut.
Kind of, like a donut split into pie wedges sort of thing. And each one, you know what it reminds me of? You know Game of Thrones?
I am aware.
Sequence of that with all the sort of like 3D kind of towers and things that as the music plays.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, kind of stylistically.
Yeah, it's a very clean, stylized kind of version of it. Like, it's not got a huge amount of detail. It's got enough to give you a vibe of the place. Like the Abyss, you look at that and you go, that doesn't look friendly. Whereas Elysium looks quite nice, for example. Yeah,
Mount Celestia. Looks lovely.
Oh, I wouldn't want to walk up that mountain
with a cloud around it.
That would make me tired.
Well, no, maybe there's an elevator.
That would be nice. I hate walking uphill.
Yeah. There might be. Or an escalator, perhaps. Or a friendly giant eagle that flies you up to the top.
Oh, that sounds quite nice.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, no, I like the look of the map. Nothing really surprises me much about it. It feels just a different...
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's the same map, just a different style,
Yeah, it's quite a nice art style. It makes it look quite simple and accessible, I think. So I think if you're not familiar with all the different worlds, and a lot of the adventures from D&D recently have been very much about you're meant to plane hop. It sets you up so you can travel between all these different places. So, I think having them set up there so you can... It's really clear to see, and it gives you a really simple vibe check of what's going on there.
Yeah. Right. Are we out of news?
I am.
I don't think I have any more either. I think we might be out of news. There's going to be 3 D&D 50th anniversary dice sets coming from Fanroll. I mean, that's not desperately exciting news. And
well, if you're into your dice, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. They come in nice boxes, and you get a set of dice, one of each dice, and they're brightly coloured. There's one that's kind of quite old school themed, which is kind of like very plain with quite bold letters on them. Letters? Numbers. Not letters. Letters and numbers are different things.
Well, I'm sure in the build-up to Gen Con next month, because Gen Con is the 1st to the 4th of August, I'm sure in that build-up we'll get more and more news, because people tend to release stuff and preview things at Gen Con, so... but I'm sure we're going to get more D&D news, because I think for the next... few months, because it's launching in September time, I think we're going to get more and more previews and more stuff, so we'll have more to talk about with the new Player's Handbook and upcoming releases, and hopefully more diverse TTRPG news with different people doing different things as we come up to August.
Yeah.
Malak the Maleficent here. If, like me, you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing on Patreon for exclusive bonus content every week, and the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing you are helping to keep the show going. Subscribe at patreon.com/Morrus. There, I said it. Could you stop staring at me like that now? The things I do. All right. Don't forget, patreon.com/Morrus. Can I go now?
Okay, so we have got a special guest with us here today, joining us here live on the podcast. I say live, but this is, of course, pre-recorded, so I live
recorded,
but
though.
A live recording on the podcast is one of the designers of 13th Age, Rob Heinsoo. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for getting me up so much earlier this morning than I usually do that I now understand it's possible, and I feel great about it.
What time is it where you are?
Well, actually, it's 7:30 now. So this is, but this is just about when I usually wake up. So
yeah. We won't talk about the time of day I usually wake up.
Yeah, none of us are morning people at EM Publishing.
A lot later than that.
Lot
later.
it works out well us not being morning people though, because it means all our colleagues that are in the US, we actually have some working time with them. So
understood.
But anyway, we're going to talk about 13th Age. I mean, the burning question, of course, is this being the second edition of 13th Age, Rob, was there any temptation to call it 14th Age at any point in the conversation or design process?
Oh, well, okay, so I guess there probably was that temptation, but it absolutely wasn't from me or from Jonathan, or probably from the publisher. On the other hand, lots of other people involved, like the first joke, the first time they heard we were going to do it, it was like, well, of course it's 14th Age. Yeah. And so, to a certain extent, I mean, the truth is, if we were going to do 14th Age, it would be a lot different, because the whole idea is that ages end in spectacular catastrophes, and then you reboot on something. And so, at a risk of, let me think, 14th Age is either a Cthulhu game or steampunk or something, right? But it's not. Is this
an exclusive scoop coming from Rob Heinsoo very soon?
14th Age will be a complete lore change of the world.
If you ever do decide to do that,
no, wait a minute.
I'm all in. I'm up for it. I'll play that game.
Do scoops have to be true?
I don't know. In this day and age,
yeah, that's right.
We're in a post-truth
Congratulations!
World, I
guess. You just got a big scoop of something, but I wouldn't look at it too closely.
All right.
So anyway, let's go back to the actual true stuff, the actual real 13th Age. So 13th Age, that's like 10 years ago, isn't it? It first came out. I remember.
It might even be 11.
It's 11 now, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember it.
I don't know. The copyright date says 2013, but I'm not going to be able to tell you whether or not that was true.
So it's around about.
Cheers.
Then.
Yeah.
We're all getting older. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It was in the past.
Yep.
But I remember it well, and I remember it. It was being advertised at the time as a love letter to D&D. And it was you and Jonathan, and with your third edition and your fourth edition experience kind of combined to make this game. So I just wanted to, before we dive into what's changed for the second edition, just jump back 10, 11, whatever years. Just for those listening who may be not quite as familiar with what 13th Age is, just quickly recap, what is 13th Age and its kind of relationship to D&D and D&D-esque games like that.
Sure. When Jonathan and I were both away from Wizards, but still playing in the same gaming group, we got the chance. We were sort of talking, what are we going to do next? And I was involved in a company that was making a digital game, and I had already done the design, and so I was waiting around. And I was like, well, I can work with Jonathan. So the question was, when we talked with each other, what do we want to do? And the answer was that we decided we really wanted to go ahead and do the type of game we played together every Wednesday night, which was to say a D&D style D20 rolling fantasy game. And we both had unfinished business with the topic, because in a certain sense, I mean, both third and fourth edition were done, let's call it for the man, for the corporation. And there were things in both of them that had to be there because that was how the company sold products. And and we quite liked being able to be our own bosses and to make the decisions about what to publish. Pelgrane pretty much gave us that latitude. So what we ended up doing was we created a D20 rolling game with the crunchy ass pieces, the fun crunchy pieces. Like we wanted to take the good parts where people are making interesting choices when their characters are in combat, but they're not worrying that much about counting squares or anything, you know, so abstracting certain systems. And on the mechanical side, we wanted to add, we didn't think we were doing a game line. Our goal was, we were publishing one book.
Just the one game.
We just published, we were like, we won't be able to work together for a book. Let's just do this. And so that's why we filled the book with things like the escalation die, which is basically every round it gets 1 point easier for the heroes to hit.
I love the escalation die.
And the math starts off against the heroes, so the dramatic curve is like, oh no, we're in trouble! You know, and my players cuss me out every single first round, you know. You're a bullshit ref, this is a bullshit game. And
the escalation die is a genius piece of design. It's brilliant. It's just so simple, but so clever at the same time. I love it.
Other games have, to a certain extent, been borrowing it. So we tried to like take that kind of crunchy stuff and then combine it with some indie style storytelling tricks that were from indie games. And that would be more things like the background system that says every time you're making a skill roll, you can actually talk about why your character is good at this, and maybe like some story comes out about them. The icon relationships system, which is something that's giving every player character a foothold in the icons, the most powerful archetypes in the world, that then the character has some relationship with, and magical things tend to happen around them because of it. And even more so, I think the thing that was really fun that we couldn't, you know, I'm reasonably certain that I wanted to do it while I was at Wizards, but, you know, you just couldn't. And that was like your one unique thing, which is
I love that as well. Love it.
Every single player character does start out with something about them that is unique, and that it's only them, and you're telling the game master what kind of campaign you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, when the player who was, I'm the only human child of a zombie mother ever born, I don't know if they wanted to become a figure of prophecy, you know, and the end times, but that's what was going to happen. And so when you think about all the great heroes, there is something unique about them in literature and elsewhere. There's a story. Oh yeah, that's the guy who fights with the frying pan. You know, beat Palauran from Loratha or something. And then we want people to have that foothold on telling the game master what they want the story to be about, as well as setting themselves up as true heroes. The game is not. It's fairly. I would call it fairly high fantasy, and it certainly starts off with the idea that first level heroes are already people who are pretty interesting.
I remember my first 13th Age character, and I played that. It was played at UK Games Expo, and it was before 13th Age was released. And we did make a video of it actually, but the acoustics were so bad you can barely hear it. But it is online somewhere on YouTube to watch. But my character is his one unique thing was, as I recall, talks to dogs. I didn't specify whether the dogs talked back, but I just said talks to dogs, and I just had so much fun with that throughout the game.
In the way that you do in real life as well.
I just talk at dogs.
Yeah.
Wow, you were able to fulfill a lifetime ambition in just the first time you played. Right.
I know, amazing.
Just for my own edification, what type of character was it? Do you remember what class it was?
Do you know what? I can't.
You remember the unique. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. I do remember the unique.
Yeah.
And do you know what? The things I remember about that game, and it was a long time ago, the things that I do remember and stick in my mind are the one unique thing, are the escalation die, are the background system. It's the things that 13th Age innovated. Like all the regular D&D-esque stuff. It kind of blends into other games, but the stuff that 13th Age, innovated, they stick clearly in my mind from that day.
I think maybe in this second edition, one of the things you may want to check out for fun, check out the Bard this time around.
Okay.
I've always wanted to play a Bard that felt magical, musical, and amusing, and surprising. And this time around, using the talent structure, which the game says, which is you get 3 talents, Bards basically choose 3 instruments that they have mastered so much that the magic is part of them, like strings or drums or brass or voice or dance, and then they get a bunch of powers and things that are related to that interact with that style of magic. And it's been very fun. So, yeah, it's not a class it's the one class that is absolutely wrong for a first-time player because you have to keep track of things. But it's sort of unapologetically going ahead and saying, you're an experienced player and you haven't had fun playing a bard as much as you want to before, try this. So,
let's try this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So going on to second edition then. So, what was the impetus? What was the sort of like? At some point, you decided, right, we need a second edition of this game. What was the sort of goal with making the new edition?
Okay, so one of the funny things is I remember there were people from France who wanted to buy into 13th Age. It was a company, and they were like, you're going to do a second edition, right? And then we can start off. And I was like, I don't think we are. This is like a few years ago. It's like, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to make people buy everything again. I mean, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And so the impetus actually came from your side of the pond. I picked up a copy of Frostgrave's second edition.
Oh, right, yeah.
When because I looked at what he'd done and I realized, wait, his goal, which was to, McCulloch, was to, recognizing that that game is a miniatures game that's based on wizards choosing powers and spells. And many of the spells turned out to not be that interesting or playable. Like the people who were really playing the game, I'm going to win, were like not choosing those spells. And he was like, I want more of the game to be interesting. I want to take those things that I did before that weren't so great. That was my original impetus. And because I was very cheered by the fact that, his list of changes, this is the changes he have to make to other books. He had a 2-page spread. Boom. That was it. Yeah. I was like, oh, congratulations. That's how we'll do a second edition. We will go ahead and not force people to buy all the books again because I just don't feel good about that. I'm like, you had a perfectly good copy of a bestiary, and I'm not going to go ahead and say, wow, the system has changed, and you need, no. So, therefore, the original impetus was to recognize that certain classes, and especially certain talents and powers and spells, just although they might be fun, they weren't being chosen by players who played the game twice, and so therefore, raise the level of, make it so there's many more interesting choices for people as they play their characters. And it grew from there because I got Jonathan involved. And Jonathan, when he dives into something, thinks about everything very carefully and comes up with ideas that, frankly, we hadn't started with. So the monsters, for example, have been redesigned with so that there's far fewer vanilla and much more sort of different feeling puzzle solving aspect to them in a certain sense, which I think is quite fun. And the other giant thing that we actually needed to do right, I'm now going to be critical of my original game because it's funny. Like the original, the system we called the icon relationship system at that time, the icon connections, whenever I talked with a game master or a group that was having a lot of fun with 13th Age, I said, out of curiosity, what do you guys do with icon connections? And then they would tell me. I don't know if I ever really got the same answer twice. And that was because, because our rule, like when we said we had a half-designed world and we want people to go ahead and be able to like put their own spin on the world. Well, that was a half-designed mechanic. So basically every single game master who was really, having fun with it would go ahead and they'd put their own spin on it and make it work for themselves. And we're like, well, that's not ideal. I mean, it's good, but it's also clearly there's people bouncing off of it. So this time around, we've taken the trouble to provide about 30 pages of examples of the icon connections, where before we had pretty sure about 0. And so, and the system and those examples include then the icons aren't just explained as character background. The 3 or 4 page write-ups of each of the icons focuses on how you as a player might interact with their organizations and with their magical power. So the spin is, instead of that sort of weird blend of this is world background that you get to mix up, it's more like, no, this is information for players. So I know that there will still be people who will use other ways of doing it, but so far so good in terms of people understanding what was actually meant. And it's a narrative thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, good. I was just going to say, so obviously designing a second edition, you've mentioned some things like you obviously want it to be slightly backward compatible so people don't have to rebuy everything. And obviously some of the inspiration from it is from playing the game, and just like that example you gave, seeing things you're like, actually that could be fleshed out, that could be clearer, people using it this way. You mentioned for the first edition that there were like some indie games that kind of were part of the inspiration for the mechanics. Is that true also for the second edition?
That's a good question. I think the answer is that not specifically, because the things that we've changed at all are more things that were probably already in the DNA of the game, but weren't clear or were done more convolutedly than they needed to be.
Yeah. It's not so much adding new stuff sort of thing.
I mean, I think the thing is that the indie games I've been playing, there's possibly only in the sense that the goal is that instead of taking, if you have a power for something that takes 2 paragraphs to explain, you're probably doing something wrong. And and an indie game style is very much more like, no, just back it up. What's the really, really important piece of this? What's the nugget? Put the nugget in, and then don't mess with all the like fiddle faddle.
Yeah.
So So no, but I don't think that's specific to an indie game, a specific game.
No. Yeah.
Nope.
What were the inspirations for the first edition out of curiosity today? Because you mentioned, but I didn't know what sort of. I mean, obviously D&D as we've mentioned, but were there any other games that really jumped out at you at that time?
Both Jonathan and I had been we'd been playing. We've been playing Powered by the Apocalypse at that point.
Yeah.
Mainly, I mean, the one we most enjoyed was the original one, Apocalypse World. I'd say that I thought the background was a little bit like, not necessarily what I want to play the campaign of most. But I will say that, like, when Vincent Baker designed that original game, part of the reason I think it has been so successful is he did amazing design on what the individual characters do. Their moves in his game are incredibly well done, and they bring out when you play it, you end up perforce with the type of dramatic situation that the game is trying to get to. I think some of the other Powered by the Apocalypse games they're fun and they're really good, but it's very difficult to measure up to his. Actually, it's very difficult to measure up to his original design on that. At the time, I actually probably think that was the one that was like most on our mind, just in terms of like understanding that when something happens, make sure that it's interesting.
Yeah.
And we extended that to, we hate writing pages that are full of information that people that have already seen could, for example, an equipment list. I tried so hard to drop the equipment list from the first copy of the book, and I got so much hate from gamers who were just like, you can't drop the equipment list, you've betrayed our trust.
They're a very traditional part of D&D, I suppose, though, aren't they?
Yeah. So what did I do? So what I did is I put in, the price of a kitten is normally about a silver piece, but if you want a kitten that's guaranteed not to be possessed by a demon and you're anywhere near Hellmarsh, that costs 25 gold pieces. And so I tried to put that kind of stuff into the price list because that's interesting, and the regular price list is not so much.
Yeah, I don't know that there's such thing as a cat not possessed by a demon.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know how you could guarantee that.
Wait a minute, I think we're establishing something that, yes, we've got a dog person here today, and I'm with you, by the way. I'm with you.
I have a cat as well. I have 2 dogs and 1 cat. So the cat lives upstairs, the dogs live downstairs, the stairway is like, no man's land.
Neutral territory.
There's neutral territory there. So there's no crossover.
Is this I'm pretty sure the first British television I watched a lot of was Upstairs, Downstairs. Is that the situation you have here with the...
The cat is the lord of the manor.
That's right,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
I guess there's an element of that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, then.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on, this being the second edition, and I wanted to touch on the fact that these days the trend is to kind of avoid the term edition. Wizards are avoiding the term, with
the
their
2024 player handbook.
Paizo with their remaster, and so the term edition is kind of being avoided because I think people tend to agree with what you said earlier that having to buy everything again.
Yeah, you're right.
Kind of sucks.
Yep.
And the general trend is not to do that. So I was just thinking, was there any discussion at any point about whether do we call it an edition or do we call it 13th Age Evolved or Revised, or was there any kind of talk around that?
You know what?
Subject?
I think the answer was there was some talk about it, and then to be clear, the truth was that it was and so what is it really? Well, really, it's a second edition.
Yeah.
So we're going to call it revised. But it's not revised. It's so badly that you have to buy everything. So it's already. Let's just call it second edition. I mean that was pretty much the talk.
The
whole thing about not using editions in D&D's case, D&D has had its 50th anniversary, and WotC has decided to look only for the future. There is no past, and I that's not really. Which is a marketing decision that they chose. I hear what you're saying about it, but I guess I wasn't in tune with the other companies in terms of going ahead and deciding not to call it an edition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because wait, there is another thing. Anybody who thinks you're not going to call it an edition is going to want to call it 14th Age.
Yes, that's true.
So it's kind of I'm not going to 14th Age. So it's kind of if here we are. We're right back where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're coming out with the new. No, it's more than one core book now.
Yeah,
isn't it?
actually.
Yeah, it's two core books. Yeah,
it
is. The original was one. Yeah, so two core books. So, are the plans beyond that? Is it that, and then just continue doing the adventures and the stuff that you were doing before? Or?
Well, yeah. Right now, there is yes and yes. The first answer is that there's about 3 books. One of them, another big adventure by Gar.
Yeah.
Not quite as big as Eyes of the Stone Thief, but levels 1 through 10 that are really close to being ready. And, one of them will be a bestiary by me. One of them will be Gar's adventure. There's a source book on BMS. So there'll be a bunch of support material coming out. And every 2 years or so, I'll be doing another, let's call it a crowdfunded book that's more the first one is going to be a bunch of new classes, which is going to be a lot of fun. And so I would say that every couple years there'll be something big for the line. And I sort of think I know what the one after that is, but because it's so far in the future that I shouldn't talk about it at all. And so the answer is, as far as the line is concerned, those books will add something pretty major that isn't already in the game. And then the rest of the products will be more like you're talking about, more normal support material.
Yeah.
So,
But I want to talk a little bit about monsters, because one of the things that you guys did with 13th Age, and I don't mind admitting that it influenced what we did with some of our game design as well, it was one of the influences, is the way you provide a lot more information in the monster entry, which really stood out to me.
Are you speaking more of the bestiaries than the core book, or
Yeah. Is there going to be more of that? Is there more of that? Because that I found like I said, it inspired me. I really, really like that about the monster books.
Well, I will say that the one that I'm doing now has some of that, but also is not entirely oriented towards that. Partially because it is also focused on finally providing the non-player character write-ups that we never, that was something that people asked for from the very start. They were like, well, what about other wizards, or what about guards, or what about the people in the world who follow the icons? That's what this book is going to do a lot of.
Okay,
and to a certain extent, when you're doing those people, you don't want to write the full background completely, because that full background also depends partially on the game masters
and on the person
and on the campaign. Exactly. So it's a little bit So there's sections of the book that are stat based mainly, with then sidebars about how you would use all these and options for how to use them. And then there's also things that are more like the original bestiaries detailed entries. I'm positive the answer is the bestiary that comes after that one, since there probably will be one, will be more like what you're talking about, very in depth. And it's kind of one of those situations where we try to be in depth, but are not creating canon that people have to use. It's kind of like saying, this is a version of the kobolds. This is a version of the, the ogre mage. This is but you don't have to.
Your kobolds might be different.
You don't have to use it. And I think that's one of the things about 13th Age that's a little bit, how to say it. One of my writing instructions for writers who are writing in 13th Age is, we are not telling the story. We are providing the elements that people can put together in their campaigns and then riff on. And sometimes what happens is, I think that writers who've been accustomed to writing for a lot of other games have this thing where they're creating lore, but the lore doesn't really have the angle of, well, how do player characters interact with it? And so, and that's what we try to remember. We try to remember the lore. Lore is fun for people to read. And there's I call it solitary game. That's solo gaming. There's a whole lot of us who solo game by reading game lore and enjoying it.
That's half. Yeah, it's part of the hobby. Part of the hobby is doing that.
But simultaneously, what we try to do with ours is we try to make it more useful for the players. We try to make it so, well, this is how the players would interact with it. Not all the monster write-ups end up living up to that, but enough of them do, I think, and I think that's part of what makes them memorable and useful in the sense that it won't just be something that, well, this is what these guys are like. It's like, no, this is what these guys are like on the table when you're interacting with them, and all their actions are going to have consequences that lead you in the campaign in some strange direction that you hadn't expected at all. So that's a certain perspective that I think is a little bit different, and I know that I've had to, pretty much every writer who comes onto 13th Age, I end up guiding, in that direction. So I know that it's actually something different.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to talk to us. I cannot wait to see 13th Age Second Edition. Cannot wait. I mean, I'm going to be first in line. I want that game so much. So
I'm reasonably certain we'll be able to find you a copy. So
thank you.
But first, all right, it's good.
And so with that, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Rob. Real pleasure.
Thank you for all the good questions. If there ever is a 14th Age, you'll get the scoop.
Do you know what? If there was a 14th Age, like I said, I'm all in.
All right.
I'm there. If it's a Cthulhu or Steampunk 14th Age, whatever it is,
it's probably got to be Steampunk Cthulhu, right? So
why not? Why not?
I love that.
All right. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much, Rob. Thank you.
Apparently, I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morrus.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morrus. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow at Morrus on the Twitter. Send your emails to morruspodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.
She'd like to walk around the table.
I don't with my level up games I run because I need all my... You've seen behind the screen. Remember, I was prepping for my game. You're like, wow, you are far more uptight than I am. I've got my...
That is not what I said.
All right.
I did not use the word uptight.
Oh, that's what I took. And I didn't... No, it's a bad thing. I am.
Organised. That was the word I used. I said, you're more organised than I am.
But we knew that.
You took uptight.
I mean, they go hand. That's why I'm organised, because I'm quite uptight and anxious.